Hi, I'm Aaron Laughlin. In this unit, we're going to start to explore the nuts and bolts of poetry. Nuts and bolts. Phrases like that are used all the time in poetry. They're concrete objects that can represent something else. In other words, symbols. Anyway, this show will be the first of two that will begin to teach you about the tools used in poetry. We'll explore double denotation, connotation, sound, and repetition.
Oh, perfect,
Pouncing.
purple joy,
How good to be with you again.
let us sing the pianissimo of the stars,
Until we beat
as one.
You encounter double denotation all the time. Double denotation is a word or phrase having more than one meaning, like the word fly. Fly can be a verb, meaning to soar in the sky. It can be a noun, an insect that you swat away from your face, or it can be a lure that you use to catch a fish. Double denotation can conjure up some wild images if you let your imagination take over, like in a sentence like this. Did you ever see a kitchen sink? When you heard that, did you imagine a sink full of dishes or a cooking center falling into a deep hole? And that's double denotation. You'll see examples in some poems you'll read for class.
The poem in the time of war.
Cuts like a knife around the wound. It burns like tears and lights a fire in your heart. The poem in the time of war leaks through the cracks of silence. It gives voice to the scream in the back of your throat. The poem in the time of war looks with vivid new eyes. It entangles the truth from a web of lies.
The next item to come out of our poetry toolbox is connotation. Connotation is the image and feeling that's unstated but associated with a word. For example, you might not want to wash your face with pigeon soap, but you probably already do that with Dove soap. Think of all the different ways you can say the same thing, like how you refer to a dog, puppy, mutt, hound, etc. Each of these words means dog, but they give you different pictures of types of dogs. Small and cute, big and mangy, howling at the moon. In the poem Richard Cory by Edwin Arlington Robinson, you read that he was a gentleman from sole to crown. So we picture a man who is well-dressed, well-groomed. Suppose instead the line read, he was a factory man from sole to crown. That would give us a totally different picture of him and change the way we think.
Home. Suppose there is a city in the brewer's lap, and his knees are the mountains singing. Suppose feathers rejoice when they fall from an eagle's wing, spinning and dancing. Suppose nature is a map leading to willow trees where spirits roam, speaking in old voices. Suppose you can climb rocks like a billy goat with clanking hooves and horns that curl for battle. Suppose a path of dandelions and buttercups takes you back to the mountain where you call out, I'm home.
Ugly. Not just ugly, but ugly. Sound is the tool in poetry where any word is chosen because its sound emphasizes its meaning. Some words just scream, like that one. The sound that they describe. Blink, plink, drip, slip, crash. And the term for words like that is onomatopoeia, when a word actually sounds like its meaning. Some poets, like Lewis Carroll, have written poems full of sound devices like his Jabberwocky. The Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood and burbled as it came. Can you hear the Jabberwock whiffling and burbling through the woods? Even if you don't know the real meaning of whiffling and burbling, you can kind of guess what they mean by their sound in the context of the poem. The sound of a poem is usually a deliberate effort by the poet to emphasize meaning and tone, to influence you, the reader, and control you without your knowledge.
When I am wise.
When I am wise in the rush of birds, I learn a new language.
I bend to the narrow path of life.
I dance and jump with the explosion of weeds.
When I am wise in the sorrow of rain, I stop and notice better days.
In the ripples of wind, I take a picture with my memory.
Peanut butter jelly, peanut butter jelly, peanut butter jelly, Peanut butter jelly with a baseball bat. Peanut butter jelly with a baseball bat. How many times you heard that at sporting events? Over and over again, I'm sure. As annoying as the peanut butter jelly song is, it's a great example of our next poetry tool, repetition. Repetition is repeating words or phrases. Repetition is used in poetry to make something childlike, to suggest continuation, to emphasize or to set up a pattern and break it to draw attention. Alfred Lord Tennyson uses repetition right from the start. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward. And he finishes each of the 6 stanzas or groups of lines in a poem with either rode the 600 or a variation like left the 600 or noble 600, with 600 meaning the size of the brigade and the most repeated phrase in the poem. In the poem, Strong Iron Hands by an unknown poet, the 2-word phrase, strong iron, is repeated 12 times in a 12.5-line poem.
What I want to burn the pages of hate.
I want to feel a waterfall run down my back.
I want to find a vaccine for pain and suffering in the human soul.
I want the
He says.
And the
She says.
To be
We all said.
I want gossip to shrivel up into a ball
So I can kick it around.
with my cleats.
The 5th poetry tool we'll explore has to do with how the poem is structured and ultimately how the poem looks on the page. Enjambed lines and word placement. An enjambed line is when a line of poetry physically ends before its meaning ends. To illustrate that, think of one of the simplest poems ever written. You've heard it all your life. Roses are red, violets are blue. Sugar is sweet, and so are you. In that poem, each line ends at the end of the line's meaning. But what happens to the meaning of the poem? If we write it differently, like this. Roses are, red violets are, blue sugar is, sweet and so are you. I'll bet you're shaking your head right now trying to figure out the meaning. Writing it that way changed the beat and rhythm, which is the whole point and power of the enjambed line. William Carlos Williams does this on purpose in his poem, The Dance. In Bruegel's great picture, The Kermis, the dancers go round. They go round and around. Word placement can work the same way. Sometimes a poet will deliberately place a single word on a line, even if it's just at the end of the previous sentence. They do that for impact. They want to draw your attention to that word. Some poets, like E. E. Cummings, even split words for effect, like this.
With all these moments. With all these moments which grew, then picked, and all those who shot, snapped, raced across this time of floral grace, and those forgotten left behind a level of heart. And thee who ripened my moments, and sweetened and baked as tender enough to eat, and those who greatened our moments and kneaded our bread, made such a difference.
Double denotation, connotation, sound repetition, and enjambed lines and word placement. The first 5 tools used in poetry. I'm Aaron Laughlin.
Down,